I know exactly how discouraging it is to see the scale stuck after doing all of the right things. After 11 years as a personal trainer and losing nearly 80 pounds myself, this video is gonna be about 5 simple shifts that I use to turn everything around. And this can do the same for you. I know that because I have helped hundreds do the exact same thing. To start, I'm gonna show you how to stop spiraling after a weekend slip up. So imagine this, let's pretend you lost 30 pounds. You step on the scale after a wedding weekend and it's up 3 pounds. Your stomach sinks, maybe you've been there before. You think, how did this happen? I barely even overate. But in this case, you trust this process that I'm just about to show you. You actually do this despite how you feel. And by just Wednesday, you're back down again at an all-time low. But how do you do that? Let me show you so that you can bounce back in literally just 24 hours. Now listen, a bad meal, a bad weekend, even a bad week does not mean the end of the world. Most people spiral here. I know how that guilt crushes your momentum. In that scenario, if you lost 30 pounds and gained back just 3 pounds, I know in the moment it feels like a disaster, but it's just 3 pounds. And here's the thing, I know you've heard this before, but it has to get to your heart, okay? It's just water weight. The real enemy here isn't the food, it's the guilt and the shame. Think of a bad meal like a speed bump. When you hit it, you don't turn around and go home. So in this case, you don't start ordering pizza and throw everything out the window and start binging and say, screw it, I'm off my diet. For this point, you need to press into what you know, not exactly what you feel. And I have been there with you exactly. I know that guilt. It's like walking through fog with a GPS. You can't see clearly, but you know the path is there. Just follow it. So here's your path, here's your plan. This is what I call the 24-hour rule. Just for 24 hours. You can give in to this after the 24 hours, but there's no punishment. You plan all of your meals for the next 24 hours. Plan your next workout and make sure to hit it. Even if that's not in 24 hours, make sure to have the plan ready. And number 4 is to hit your steps. In that day and in the next day, hit your steps. For 24 hours, you gotta get these things done. And I promise you, you will feel better by then. And what's cool is up to that point, because you followed that rule, your actions will align that time with your feelings. Instead of you having to catch up for lost time because you spiraled out of control through the guilt, you will have already been doing the things because you did what you knew you had to do, not what you were feeling. And then when they align, man, it feels so good. And here's the cool part. Each time you bounce back after this, in fact, I coach my clients and, hey, this is a skill we gotta build. We gotta build a skill of bouncing back and ignoring something that we consider bad, because it isn't bad if it's ignored. Every time you do this, you become more like the person that's capable of keeping the weight off. Tell me in the comments, I know this has probably been your issue. I bet you've lost the weight before. It's keeping it off, right? So we gotta build that resilience. This is part of the process. But if you measure progress the wrong way at this point, you're gonna feel like your fat loss isn't working. It's gonna derail you. Even if the plan is working perfectly. I'm gonna show you how to not make that mistake next. Tell me if you've been in the same situation I have been in countless times. Everything was going great. I was losing 2 to 3 pounds a week. Nothing changed, but all of a sudden I stopped losing. And sometimes even it felt like I was going a little bit backwards. So I felt like quitting. I stopped food logging. That was the first thing that always happened. I skipped workouts and I told myself that it just wasn't worth it anymore. Maybe I didn't say that out loud, but that's what my actions felt like. But if I took a step back and looked in the mirror and looked at my workout performance, I was getting stronger and honestly looking a lot better. But that nagging feeling of the scale not moving was still in my head. This cycle that I just described is what has costed me more time than any other mistake throughout this journey. It stole months of progress and left me second guessing everything. And it also made me feel broken, even though I wasn't. So what did I do? Well, let me show you so you don't feel like quitting after a bad weigh-in. So my biggest mistake here that I'm referencing is trusting the scale a little bit too much. Fat loss takes time, especially with 50 to 100 pounds to lose, like most of my viewers are and how I was. And here's the thing, if you're lifting weights that whole time, like I always preach and like literally is a must do, you're gonna be gaining muscle at the exact same time that you're losing weight. If this takes you a year or two, you're gonna gain significant weight from the muscle that you're gaining. Now this is good weight. You're gonna love the shape. It's gonna help you to remain in your calorie deficit. It's gonna make your calorie deficit easier to maintain because you're gonna be able to eat more and still be in a calorie deficit. It is essential, so don't let this derail you that you're thinking, oh no, Aaron's saying I'm gonna gain weight. By the end of this journey, if you have as much weight to lose as I did, you are going to gain 10, maybe even 15 pounds of muscle. And I promise you, please hear me, you're gonna love it. But we also have to realize that that's gonna make the scale feel slower, but it's not. You are going to look amazing, okay? You're gonna love your body again. You're gonna feel sexy again. Because I'm telling you, there's nothing worse. I mean, actually, I guess I've never really been here, but I imagine there's nothing worse then losing all the weight and realizing, wow, I still don't like what I see because I don't have any muscle. Now I'm just kind of skinny fat. And then at that point, you have to eat so little in order to keep the weight loss up. It's very discouraging. The scale is like a speedometer. It is useful in the car, of course, but it doesn't show the whole picture. It only shows one aspect of your car's movement. It doesn't show the direction that you're going. It doesn't show if your brakes are working or if you have enough oil. It doesn't show any of that. It's just how fast your car is moving. So I think I would start focusing on something a little bit more than the scale, and that's gonna be the mirror strength scale method. So as long as you're not too sensitive to it, start checking your physique in the mirror. It's kind of fun, especially as you start progressing and stuff. You act like a little bodybuilder, you put on a little bodybuilding show for yourself. And you start to memorize those little pieces of fat that you still have. And I know that, I mean, if you're really sensitive to this, maybe don't do that too often. But for instance, I know that right here, I carry a little bit of fat still. And so I know it sounds maybe unhealthy or something, but I pinch that almost every day. And I'm telling you, I have it so memorized of how like big it is or how easy it is to grab. But I'm like, you know what? That's getting harder to grab. And it's just nice because as I'm gaining muscle, and I definitely have gained a lot of muscle, it's nice to know, hey, I know that this fat is getting smaller as well. So for me, I picked like 1 or 2 spots to pinch in the mirror every single time. And I know, again, this might sound a little bit weird, but this is just, how I did it. Then is your strength. Are your lifts improving? If your lifts are improving, oh my gosh, that is such good news. Please give more emotional energy to that if you haven't done that for yourself. Because when your strength is improving, and yet, even if the scale is stuck, that means you're probably losing body fat, because the only way into a journey for after a while, let's say 3, 4, 5 months, the only way that you're still getting stronger is that you're gaining muscle. If you did 50 pounds for 12 reps and now you're doing 50 pounds for 15 reps, you are building muscle. And that means your shape is coming in, and that means you're actually in the background losing more body fat than you thought. And then we go back to the scale. We use the scale still, but we look at the trend, not the weigh-ins. We look at what has been happening over the last month or 2. In fact, I can show you mine. I'm using Macro Factor right now to track my weight. And so I'll show you like the weight trend. And it's kind of cool. This is just the last like 3 months. Now I put data in from old, so it's not that smooth normally. The end is where I'm putting them in daily. But you can see the trend is down. So if it ever feels slow, I just look at this and I'm like, man, I've done pretty good lately. Now at this stage, most people fail here because of the burnout. But when you do this next step, it will guarantee that you lose all the fat and you never burn out again. So let me show you this. I have an example. I don't know if this is gonna work. I don't know, can you see these? 2 different rubber bands and one just snapped. I'm not sure if this is gonna work, but you'll get the point. Actually hit me in the ear a little bit, it kind of hurt. But that snap, that's the rebound binge. Maybe you've been there. That's the guilt, the cravings, the 10 pounds coming right back. This next part of my system will help you avoid all of that in the first place. Listen, every fat loss journey has an end. You gotta be ready for that end. You gotta be ready for what comes next. Rarely do we think about this. We think about losing the weight. We never think about transitioning into everyday life again. And that transition is usually where the weight loss graph comes down, and then I bet you know this one, it goes back up, right? And it goes right back up, maybe even past where it started. If we can be ready for down here, we win. Like a road trip with no hotel, if you don't have a plan on where to stop, you're gonna end up going right back home. So we gotta think in 3 phases. The first phase is obviously losing the weight. This part, as hard as it is, there is an aspect where this is the hardest part of the journey, but there's also an aspect where it's the easiest part of the journey, because at least you're focused on something and you're going towards something, whereas keeping the weight off is more like a daily kind of low intensity grind. So we want to be careful that we don't actually slip back in our old ways. So phase 2 then is the maintenance, or keeping the weight off. But I don't want to have this phase be the end. This is a short window. After you reach your goal, there's a short window of maintenance. The third phase is actually lifestyle. And you could consider that just longer, maintenance. But this is how your life promotes you keeping this weight off. Most people repeat this lose regain cycle, and it's just crushing. I remember before I lost like my weight the first time, I lost like 40 or 50 pounds. And I made this big commitment to myself, this like vow that I was gonna have no bad foods. And I promise you, believe me if you want, don't if you don't, for a year, a little over a year, I didn't have a single cookie, I didn't have a single donut or chip or anything. I was perfect. This ended up being a big mistake, because when I did slip up, and I remember I didn't even plan it, it was like pancakes or something, and I considered that like breaking my vow to myself, where I had something sweet, I had some sweets. It was very unhealthy. There was a mental health aspect to it too, but the guilt and the emotional turmoil set in so deeply. This time I have been on my journey for 18 months. Now, I am a personal trainer. I've been a personal trainer for 11 years, so that might sound kind of confusing. But I've made some switches to how I train people and how I train myself that have made this permanent and easy. I'm more muscular than ever. I don't think I'm going back this time because it was slow and sustainable. The slowness has allowed my mind and my body to adjust, not just my body. It's the same way that like when a person wins the lottery, how most of them statistically, they actually end up going broke and maybe more broke than before because they didn't build the habits necessary to have that kind of money. They were the same person. So they just spent all that money on being that old person. A new person with a lot of money, a person with a lot of money has to be a little bit different. They have to learn how to manage that more than a person with nothing to manage. I want to encourage you with this. I have loved this. And I hope this is, I hope you get fueled up by this. Every 10 pounds is like an adventure. And yes, you get used to that 10 pounds and you want more, but it's not like you have, if let's say you have 80 pounds to lose like I did. It's not like 80 pounds is the holy grail and that's it. I had so much fun at 20 pounds lost. I started feeling more attractive at 20 pounds lost. Whenever my first pair of pants stopped fitting super well, I mean, what I'm wearing on now is loose. Like it's kind of falling down right now. And each stage I had to get a little bit, maybe I got some new shorts or maybe I, experienced that an old shirt fit good that I really used to like, whatever. There's these things that come up that throughout the journey you have a whole lot of fun. Now, yes, I will admit that once you're at 40 pounds lost, it feels great. And if you stay there for too long, you kind of want more. And that's okay. I think that's natural for the human, psyche to want to achieve more. And even at the end of your journey, then you can switch to muscle building. You can switch to cycling for sport or whatever you want to do. But the point there is that this is fun along the way. You don't have to wait for the entire year or two to start having fun. You will have fun very, very close to the beginning. Here, though, is where most people fail. Right after they lose the weight because they miss this next step. Remember that feeling at the beginning of a weight loss journey? You're motivated, you're pumped up, you're hitting all your workouts, you adjusted your diet, you're ready to go. That motivation means you get a bunch of quick wins and you just feel excellent. This is your motivation at the beginning of a fat loss phase. Over weeks of dieting, your energy drains, your hormones push back, cravings get louder, workouts feel harder, and the cup gets emptier. The goal though is to fill that cup back up, get you back to full capacity, ready to win again. And if you ignore the empty cup, you don't just burn out, you erase months of hard work. And you start dreading that you have to do the process all over again. I have been there. But how do you keep the cup full? Let me show you this so this time your weight loss can be smooth and continuous. This point has to do with diet breaks. Diet breaks are essential. Most people don't plan them and they hit plateaus. They don't even want to talk about diet breaks because they don't want to slow down their progress, and I totally get it. Dieting nonstop though is like running a marathon without water. You're not gonna finish the marathon, so why not take a break and end up finishing this whole thing to begin with? A diet break only really needs to be like 2 to 4 weeks. Sometimes it's a little bit longer. I'm gonna show you where you feel that it's the correct place to go back into your diet. It's really gonna be, and I know this is like, I wish I could give you something more solid, but it's when you feel excited to return back to your diet. Remember how I started talking about at the beginning of a diet, you have all that motivation. Whenever you take a diet break and you're like, dude, I'm ready again. Like I missed that feeling of being able to see the scale drop and drop and drop. And I feel recuperated and I feel like I have that motivation back, that mojo. If you lost that mojo, and now you're feeling like, man, I kind of want to do that again, right? But this time you're not restarting a diet, you're continuing your old one. Man, that's a win. Plateaus are time to reset, not to quit. So if you feel like you are stuck and there's nothing you can do, stop trying to progress. Slowly increase your calories just a little bit. 100 calories a day, maybe for a week, and then maybe another 100, and then maybe another 100. You might find that you start losing weight again. And actually at that point, I usually encourage my clients like, hey, this is fun, this is great, but please trust me, we gotta keep going up on the calories until we hit maintenance. And then we do that for like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and they're like, Aaron, please let me go back on a diet. And I'm like, yep, we hit it, we found it. This brings us to our next big problem though, which everyone overlooks. Let me show you this study. So I'm gonna put it up on the screen for you and be reading from my phone here, but sleep curtailment in healthy young men is associated with decreased leptin levels, elevated ghrelin levels, and increased hunger and appetite. So curtailment meaning they put the sleep back, they pulled it back from them. So in this, you'll see that there was 2 days of sleep restriction under that intervention part and 2 days of sleep extension under controlled conditions of caloric intake and physical activity. So the caloric intake and the physical activity were consistent. And the sleep restriction was associated with average reductions in the hormone leptin. Now leptin, I'll put it over here, is a hormone primarily produced by fat cells that signal long-term energy storage in the brain. When fat stores are sufficient, leptin levels rise, which suppress appetite. So decreased leptin would mean that you don't have leptin helping you say, hey, stop eating. And then we have ghrelin. These guys had elevated ghrelin, and ghrelin, the purpose of ghrelin, is that it is a hormone primarily secreted by the stomach that acts as a fast-acting stimulant of appetite. So increased ghrelin means you're gonna wanna eat more. So it's no wonder that you have something fighting against you, that you're like, dude, I can't stop thinking about food. I feel like I'm so hungry. If you're deep in a diet and you already have those hormones going the wrong way already, and then you don't focus on your sleep, this is a recipe for turning the other way. So how do you use this knowledge to help you now that you know how important sleep is? Let me show you this so you can experience the superpower of this weight loss strategy for the first time that you've probably ever experienced it. Let's say you wake up groggy, you skip the gym, and you find yourself just kind of snacking, and then that guilt sort of sets in and maybe it continues. 7 to 8 hours of sleep. A lot of people think they don't need that much, but I think there's very few people that don't need at least 6 hours of sleep. So if this is you, if your schedule is difficult, give effort to this part because it's so easy for us to just remain chronically sleep deprived because at the end of the day, I get it, you want to relax a little bit. But this is so important. If this is important to you to lose this weight, please focus on this aspect of your health because if you never have before, it's gonna make everything so much easier. The main way, and I hate to say this, but it really is just discipline. The main way to work on your sleep is being disciplined about when you get in bed. But also, we tend to underestimate the power caffeine holds over us. I cannot tell you how many times a client has told me, no, I could drink a coffee and go to bed. That might be true. I'm not saying that person is wrong or that they're lying. It's just that their sleep quality is gonna be a lot less. This has been proven in studies. You have no control over the quality of your sleep outside of what you do during the day. So curtail, to go back to that study word, curtailing, shorten the amount of time that you allow yourself to have caffeine. So pull it back, maybe like 12 or 2 p.m. at the latest is whenever you're consuming caffeine. Because 12 hours later, there's still gonna be some of that caffeine in your system. If you're drinking caffeine right up to bed, then the entirety of your bedtime, of your rest is going to be caffeine induced. It's gonna keep you in this lighter stage of sleep that doesn't allow true rest. So to help you kind of pick out something more solid than just be more disciplined, I have 3 S's of sleep. 1 is schedule, we just talked about that. That's consistent sleep and wake times. 2 is stimulants. So that means cut caffeine somewhere around noon or 2 p.m. and cut the screens sometime like an hour before bed. Number 3 is your surroundings. This is a cool, dark room. Now some people prefer white noise, others don't. Figure out what you like. But definitely it being dark and it being cool. Seriously, don't sleep on this tip. See, I can be funny sometimes too. If your calorie deficit keeps leaking though, it's really gonna derail you. That's why I made this video next, so you can fix the real reason your diet isn't working, even when you're counting your calories.